This family, their house, is often referred to as the House of Horrors, and after looking into it, I completely understand why. I mean, you guys know I've spoken about a lot of them. I've listened to countless of these cases. It never fails to shock me how evil people can be. The very requested case of the Turpin family, this took place in California. The family is made up of the mother, the father, and 13 kids, all which were treated like prisoners in their own home. 10 daughters and 3 sons that were all born in between 1988 and 2015. David Turpin and Louise knew each other for years. They attended the same church. It was a Pentecostal Christian church. They currently both live in Virginia. In high school, David was actually pretty popular. He was well liked. He was a good student. He was really smart. He got good grades. A little nerdy, but he was liked. He had friends. Louise, on the other hand, in high school was bullied a lot. From what I read, her life at home was not good. Her mom was not a good mother. She did get along with her siblings though. In 1985, David is 24 years old. Louise is only 16 years old, and even though their parents tried to stop them, they end up getting married. David ends up going to Virginia Tech. He graduates, and after he gets a really good job as a computer engineer, he's making really good money. The couple is really happy. They were both really in touch with their religion. They're really looking forward to starting a family. They wanted to have kids, and they wanted to have a lot because they said that they felt, quote, God called on them to have a massive family. July 1988, their first kid is born, and around this time, they moved to Fort Worth, Texas. Because Louise did not grow up wealthy, she had a tougher upbringing. When she started this life with David, she was very excited. He had a good job, he had good money, and he could provide for her. Louise was kind of feeling like she won the lottery. She took it, she ran with it until she took the money spending a little too far. Right, they had a nice house, they had nice cars, they went out often because they could, but then Louise started spending a lot of money on gambling. And then it was an issue because she didn't really know how to control herself. She didn't know her limits. Money was kind of getting thrown out left and right. They also both started to majorly lack in the parenting department. They didn't know, or they didn't want to properly take care of their little girl. The little girl was in first grade now, and she would wear the same exact outfit to school every single day. Outfit wasn't getting washed. She wasn't getting washed. She wasn't taking showers. She was not brushing her teeth. She wasn't taken care of at all. It was terrible. Because of that, she started getting bullied at school heavily. Fast forward, at this point, Louise and David have 4 kids now. Elizabeth, Louise's sister, moves in with them, so now she's obviously spending every single day around them and around the kids, which is when she starts seeing questionable behavior, to say the least. From what Elizabeth described, David would run the house like a cult. Kids were not treated like humans, really. They had to be silent unless spoken to. If they had to do anything like use the bathroom, they had to ask permission before they could do so. They had weird rules, I guess you could call them. I don't even know if you would call them that. For example, at dinner time, Louise would call the kids down one by one, and they had to come down the stairs silent, no talking throughout this whole thing. Smile at the mom until she smiled back, and that was their, I guess, sign that they could sit down, and then repeat until everyone was sat at the dinner table. It was weird. By 1998, they have 6 kids now, and they have to file for bankruptcy. The house is getting foreclosed on. It gets taken away from them. The people who took the house end up having to clean it out for months. The condition of it was horrible. There was human feces and pee just soaking into the floors and into the carpet. Disgusting and so sad. Horrific living conditions. In 1999, they have 7 kids now, and they pull their one and only child that attended school. They pull her out of school because Louise says that she is going to be homeschooling the kids. And I guess that she did pretend to. She bought school supplies and set up a little classroom, but the kids never touched any of that. They weren't being taught anything. They weren't schooled at all. It was all pretend or like for show. I don't know. And this entire time, as I'm sure you can tell, the treatment of the kids just got progressively worse. The parents started to brainwash the kids. They wanted the children to be scared of the outside world, to be scared of other people that weren't part of their immediate family. Kids were not allowed to talk to anyone, not allowed to tell anyone their name. They started looking so sickly and so pale because they were being starved. They were not taking showers. I read that they were only allowed to eat one thing per day and take one shower per year. So extremely neglected, to say the least. The father, David, turns to violence. He began to chain up the kids. It started with ropes and later on turned into chains and locks. Not only that, he either had or built animal crates, and he would put the kids, the children, in those crates if they misbehaved, as if they were animals. However, this is why I find this case really strange. I mean, it's horrific regardless, but as terrible as they were getting treated at home, for whatever reason, it seems like the parents wanted to pretend to the public that they were this big happy family. For example, they took them on trips. They would buy all the kids matching outfits, take pictures and upload them to Facebook. They would buy sometimes expensive clothing for the kids, but they would keep them in the closet and they would collect dust. They would buy them bikes, but again, keep them stored. The kids were not allowed to touch them. My guess is that they wanted to do these things to pretend like they were a big happy family so that no one would come check on the family and see what was really going on. I don't know. It's the weirdest thing. Like, it was all for show. I can't understand it. 2007, David and Louise have 12 kids now, and they have a trailer, an isolated trailer that they kept on their property. Well, they moved the 10 oldest kids into the trailer to fend for themselves. They tell the 10 kids that they have to live there and figure it out, and David and Louise take the 2 youngest kids and get an apartment an hour away. Every once in a while, they would drop off food to the trailer, but not nearly enough for all 10 kids. One of the little girls later says that when she was so hungry and she had to eat something, her only options were ketchup, mustard, or ice. In 2014, they all get up and move to, I think you pronounce it, Paris, California, into a beautiful house in a beautiful neighborhood, again, probably all for show. Around 2016, some of the kids start planning out their escape. They know that they want to or that they need to get out of there. January 14th, 2018, Jordan, who was 17 years old at the time, Jordan, who was 17 years old at the time, and one of the little sisters, who was 13, get ready to crawl out the window, and they take an old deactivated phone with them. They both crawl out of the window, but the little girl gets so scared that she ends up going back inside. Jordan, the 17-year-old, is able to go far enough away to call 911. Even though the phone was deactivated, calls to 911 will still go through. So she calls 911. The call is so upsetting. She sounds like she has to be 9 or 10 years old, even though she was 17. Think about the way that these kids have been treated, though. Most of them were born into this horrible household. It's all that they've ever known. Jordan has since then done an interview, and she talks about how she was so scared, she was shaking. She thought that the parents were going to walk outside and kill her right then and there. She was also terrified because she had never been in the outside world. She had been brainwashed and trained to think that the outside world was scary. Calls 911, tells them that she lives in a house of 15 people and that her parents are abusive. She tells the operator that her sisters are inside and that some of them are chained up and she needs help. She describes the house as filthy. She says that sometimes she wakes up and she can't breathe because it's so dirty in there. She also says, quote, "I've never been out. I've never been outside, so I don't know anything about streets or anything." She was standing in the middle of the road because she didn't know what sidewalks were. She had never been outside. The operator asks about medication and she says, "I don't know what medication is." She says she's 17 years old and has not finished first grade. The operator asks her about her mother and she says she doesn't like us. They ask for the address and she can't give the address because she doesn't know what an address is. The call is insane, but eventually the cops do show up. Jordan is able to point at the house and the cops walk up to the front door, knock on the door. The parents answer the door. They say that they're there for a wellness check. Apparently, Louise, the mom, was so confused. She could not understand why the cops would be at her house. She was perplexed as to why they would be there in the first place. Cops get in there. They see how disgusting the state of the house was. There was garbage, dead animals, moldy food. Every single surface was covered in piles of trash. I mean, like, you wouldn't think that this could be real. They find the 12 other kids, one that had been chained up for 2 weeks. When the cops initially saw the kids, they were so malnourished that they thought that they were all under the age of 18. But it turns out that 7 of them were over 18. Mind you, this has been going on for years, obviously. The oldest kid was 29 years old and she only weighed 82 pounds. One of them was 12 years old and his circumference of his wrist was equivalent to that of a 4-month-old baby. The parents finally get arrested and the kids get taken to the hospital. The hospital staff described the kids as the sweetest kids. They said they were all very, very kind and respectful. Eventually, David and Louise are charged with 12 counts of torture, 12 counts of false imprisonment, 7 counts of abuse of a dependent adult, and 6 counts of February 22nd of 2019, they were sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 25 years. However, they're not going to be getting out of prison. I tried to look up where the kids are now. I couldn't get any concrete information. I know that some kids went into foster care and unfortunately they were abused by the foster care family. Some did go to school. I do know that at least one graduated from college. In November 2021, Jordan and the sister Jennifer were interviewed for an episode of 2020. They talked about their experience and how they want to become motivational speakers. It sounds like the children are all now well and all together. I want to end the video with 2 quotes that I found from Jordan. The first one is, quote, "My whole life it has been so hard for me to understand why everything has happened, but if I can use what I went through to make a difference in the world, then I think that it can heal me." As far as her siblings, in July of 2022, Jordan says, quote, "We all look out for each other. We all have this super big bond. We all have our inside jokes. We're all very, very close," end quote. So that's great. That made me happy. Another crazy one, it never fails to blow my mind. I cannot wait to talk about this one in the comments. I hope that every single one of you has had the most amazing day. I love you guys literally so much. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you. Thank you so much for watching my videos. I don't think about it too much, but sometimes I will look at the number of my following and I'm like, that's a little bit crazy. It doesn't make sense to me that there are this many of you guys, but I love you guys seriously so much. Let's talk in the comments. Love you.